This is Anna Bilski. I'm interviewing Audrey Freiman on Monday, November the 13th, 2000. Hi, Audrey.
Hi, Anna. You want to ask me a few questions?
Yes, I do.
And I'll try and answer them as best I can.
Thank you very
Although, at my age, and I'm getting a little on in years, it's very difficult to go as far back as I am going to go right now.
Oh, I think that's wonderful.
What would you like to know first?
Okay. As a native of Winnipeg, you came to Ottawa in 1933 as Lawrence Freeman's bride.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Ottawa?
My first impressions of Ottawa were kind of frightening, because I arrived never having been in Ottawa before.
Oh.
On my first trip, I didn't know the family too well, only the day of my wedding in New York City, where they all arrived, and the tears were flowing because it was kind of a surprise, because it was a very sudden kind of romance, and we were married and called everybody to come to New York to the wedding. They all arrived and they were in tears because they didn't know me, and my family didn't know, although they did know the Freemans through the Zionist collection of old days.
All right.
Because my father had been a great Zionist, and all the great people who used to come from Israel used to stay at our house. But they had to come by boat and by train. There was no way to fly.
Right.
So they all stayed and spent a few days like, I forget some of the names.
That's okay.
Weitzman
Oh, yeah.
and Mrs. Weitzman with her painted nails and her grand entrances and exits. And that was all we knew of each other, really. And then I arrived in Ottawa from New York, where we were married, by train. You might have to cut some of this up.
Okay.
By train, and at the airport, at the station, with the Freeman family and a few of their friends. Anna, I don't know if you were there, but I guess you weren't born.
No.
But I think your mother and father might have been at the station.
My father would have been.
Huh?
My father.
Yeah, your father. So that was the beginning, and being the first day of Passover, we had to get married before Passover. Would had to go all the way to Winnipeg and have a big wedding and all that, so we had a smaller wedding in New York. Everybody came to New York, and then everybody went to their respective homes. And I had a lot of relatives in New York, so we made a quite nice wedding, except all was in tears. They were all in tears. All too much and too fast.
Right.
So we arrived in Ottawa at the station, and there's everybody looking very elegant with the finery on, and I guess they didn't know who to expect. They didn't. Queenie, Dorothy, Lillian Freeman, Archie, all there. And that night, we had a welcoming home, and the next day was Passover. So, off to shul I was taken. Never having been at the shul or anything.
King Street Shul?
What?
On King Edward?
The beautiful. To me, it was a beautiful little shul on King Edward Avenue.
Yes.
And we had the front seat, so I felt very important.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that was the beginning of our wedding.
Wow.
Then, as I looked around Ottawa, and actually under the hands of Mrs. Freeman, I was immediately put to work. to work that is not physical work, but charitable work. The first person I was sent to was a man at a house, and I was supposed to be kind of a policeman, because this man's wife was beating her husband up. And it was on, I think it was on Charlotte Street or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I had my big coat on, and up I went. I walked in the door, and in my life I had never seen quite an apartment like that. Breadcrumbs, dirt, filth. It was the filthiest place. So I knock on the door, and somebody comes to the door, and I say, I'm police. What's going on here? And I pretended this whole thing, Mrs. Freiman had sent me, of course, to do all this, because she knew that it wasn't a sanitary place to be, and they were fighting with each other, and I really don't remember the name of the man.
Oh, good thing.
I wish I could remember the name of the man. Anyway, that was the first job I had. The second job I had, Mrs. Freiman kept me busy from the week I got married until I moved out. Actually, I was living, I think we moved into Somerset Street then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we bought a house on Clemo Avenue.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And that was, remember Aunt Beck Weinberg?
I remember that.
Who was an aunt or something, who was kind of the mentor of the family, who kept the family all.
She was my grandfather's
involved.
cousin.
What?
She was my grandfather's cousin. She was Aunt Lil's cousin.
Was she?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's whose house we finally rented on Clemo Avenue. That was that. Then off I go every day. This is all boring.
No, it's fine. I didn't know. I never knew this. Carry on.
Then off I went after the first few days of very intense moments when I had to do the police acts and that. I was sent to collect in the market. Collect the bushkas, the boxes.
Oh.
And I used to love going to the market. I remember going to visit. The man who used to go with me was Ruth Solway's father. I don't know, can't remember his name. Ruth's father, charming old man. And the two of us all the time would go from this place to that place. I don't think I should mention names.
Who was in the market then?
Mrs.
The Zunders
Rivers
and the Rivers?
There were quite a few. Who was Googlers?
Mm-hmm.
Googlers.
Slepikoffs were there too?
That was Belshekman's father.
Oh.
They had a big stand of millions of carrots and potatoes.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I used to go in there, they used to give me, everybody gave money for blue boxes.
Right.
And we collect every week. We would go get
Every week?
quarters. We didn't care what it was, but then go back to the Freiman house and deliver all the money to Mrs. Freiman. So that was the beginning, really, of the National Fund.
Right.
Wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
That's where the money went to the National Fund. So then, from then on, soon the war came along.
What was the social life like in the 30s?
Social life, you wouldn't say it was very exciting. You met a lot of friends, and everything was in the home.
Yes.
You never had balls, or you never had big parties in the basement of the shul. Well, in the basement of the shul's where we met, and you really had to wear a gas mask.
Yeah.
Because none of us could,
Not a...
we'd have our meetings and run
Not elegant.
out of there as fast as we could.
Yeah.
And that's when we had all our meetings in the basement of the zoo. And then we could, I'm jumping from one thing
That's
to
okay.
another.
No, that's okay. What was it like to be the young Mrs. Freiman? Since everybody knew Mrs. Freiman, and now
Yeah.
we had another Mrs. Freiman. How did people react? How did you feel stepping into that role?
I don't know. I just kept on going. I didn't have any, I made a few friends.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few. Well, and Queenie and I were quite close in those days.
Mm-hmm.
That's Queenie Freiman.
Right.
And we used, she had a car, that was the social life. And she loved going to fortune tellers.
Oh.
So wherever we found a fortune teller in the newspapers, if it was in the country, so we'd take the car, we'd go see the fortune teller.
Did they ever give you good fortunes? That's fun.
We just like to hear what they had to say.
Oh, that's
But
fun.
they told us, you lose your money here, or you get your money there, all nonsense.
You get married and have children?
What?
You get married and have children.
Yeah. But Queenie loved the fortune tellers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we'd take the car, we'd go, that was our social life.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
we had
That's funny. Yeah.
parties.
Mm-hmm.
Parties like, we used to have some quite nice parties. I think I have some pictures somewhere of us all having a party at the his basement of the school, where we used to have, where else could we go? There was nothing for the Jewish community.
No, that's
What
true.
could there be in our day?
Yeah, that's true.
Homes
Yeah.
and the synagogue, the Talmud Torah. Do you think it was started? I don't know.
I don't know.
In Winnipeg we had the Talmud Torah, but I don't know in Ottawa if they have the Talmud Torah.
I don't know.
They must have. That's
Yeah.
sort of, I have to remember going up a lot of stairs to a big room somewhere, but I don't know where that was. Somebody will come up with it.
Yeah. I remember the Histadrut Center when I was small.
What?
I remember the Histadrut Center when I was small, but that would have been
Yeah.
not there.
What else would you like to know?
The war. When the war came, how did the war affect everything?
Oh, the war.
It was,
Mrs. Freiman organized the workers to do things for the war that you wouldn't believe. She set up a sewing room on the corner of Reno. On top there was a man by the name of Mr. Ritt who had a store on Reno Street.
Mhm.
And above was an empty space. So we got that space and put as many sewing machines, asked for donation of sewing machines. And we put them up there, and we all used to go up there, up on top of Peter Street,
oh,
and what's that? I don't know. Right on the corner. And go upstairs every morning, the girls and the women. You'll come across a lot of them at the interviews.
mm-hmm.
We used to climb up the stairs, get whatever we were going to do, make some knit, some sewn on the machine, sent bundles of clothes to the war veterans.
Oh,
We worked like dogs. Oh, your
Hmm.
mother was there, everybody was there.
oh,
That was our war effort.
oh.
And I think it was under Hadassah. I think it was in those days.
Right.
We had lots of sewing machines. People gave us machines.
Oh. Did people donate yarn and fabric also and everything?
Yeah,
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
What about, I know that you took in the Richards kids from England.
Oh,
Can you tell us about that?
during the
war? Yeah.
Well, it's quite a story. I had during the war, in Ottawa. One day, somebody phoned my husband and said to him, would you know of a place we could rent? There's a school on its way over here, and it's going to be in Ottawa, and we don't know, we haven't got a place for it. Do you think you know where we could get a loan of a school for this group of English children who are escaping the war, but all from very fine families with a very wonderful teacher? The whole school, it wasn't a big school, but it was boys 6 to 10, 6 to 12. So Lord prevailed upon, in Rockcliffe, there was a wonderful house, a big house belonging to a naval officer who was posted to Vancouver. And he saw this house not far from where we lived, and found out who owned it, and wrote to the man to ask if there was any chance if we could borrow his house for his school. We would take it, fix it up exactly as it was when we took it, and we got a letter back, yes. He loaned us this big house on Acacia. Oh, good. It's still there.
Huh.
And so when this school arrived, there was a school. But in the school were a few Jewish boys. Two by the name of Richards, and two by the name of Fox. And when the school got here, there wasn't room for everybody to board after board. So Elwood School at that time was owned actually by the Celtics. They really were the money people in the school. And so it was one of their people, Mrs. Southam or Mrs. Another one on the over road, phoned and had met the teacher and said that they were, yes, Mrs. I forget what her name was, and she was worried because she had two Jewish boys whose parents had stipulated that they wanted them to carry on their religion, although we know what it wasn't a Jewish school or anything.
No, right.
So, Lawrence again said, well, they can come to me on the weekends, but I can't keep them. So that's what he did. But while they were with me, we weren't that religious, and they wanted to go. They were told they should go to shul Friday night and Saturday. Now what was I going to do? Take them to shul Friday and Saturday? No way. So Lawrence told the rabbi, and it was Rabbi Passman in those days, and then he had these two boys, and they wanted to keep up their Jewish education, and we could bring them to shul every Saturday morning. So he said, well, you can stay with me. Every week I bring them here, they can spend the weekend with me.
Wow.
So every weekend, we picked the boys up at Rockcliffe and took them to Rabbi Passman's, and they walked over to me on Saturday night back to school. But in the meantime, should I tell a story about how you stole the rabbi's box?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the boys' names were Andy and Barry Richards, who now are back in London, actually. And Barry, I don't know what became of Barry, the older one, but he married. He was in Israel and didn't do well. And I think back in London and married somebody we don't know. But Andy, the younger one, is still in touch with us.
He's a doctor, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is a doctor.
Yeah.
An ophthalmologist.
Oh, an eye doctor.
In London, goes to Africa every summer to do free work for the Africans.
Oh.
Every summer. And it's a wonderful young man. We see him quite often.
Who stole the rabbi's watch?
Oh. When the boys were, when Andy was 7, Barry was 10. And actually they were at school, and every weekend they went to rabbis. And one day, well, you can change all this. One day, but Saturday night, Lawrence, they walked over to the store, into Lawrence's office, and he took them home. But this Saturday night, Barry and Andy arrive at the store. Barry walks into Lawrence's office and says, "You're not going to believe what happened." So Lawrence said, "What?" He said, "Well, Andy stole the rabbi's wife's gold watch." And Lawrence says, "He what?" "He stole the rabbi's wife's gold watch." So Lawrence said, "Bring him in here." And he was in the winter, they had heavy snowsuits on. So Lawrence just whipped down the snowsuits, put him over his knee, and gave him a smack that he heard from here to London.
Oh, wow.
And he was surprised. Nobody had ever touched this little angel. So he looked at Lawrence, and Lawrence said to him, "If you ever do this again, I will call your mother in London and tell her what happened." And he looked Lawrence straight in the face and said, "You wouldn't dare." With that, he got another good smack in the back.
Oh, wow.
And that was that. So, of course, he told his mother, but there's only one reason that boy stole the watch. It wasn't a little thief or anything.
No.
It was he needed some attraction. He needed somebody to pay attention to.
Yeah.
He needed somebody to make a fuss over him.
Right.
So his only way
7
was...
years old. Oh.
Okay, yeah, he was 7 years old. So that was what he did to attract
Wow.
attention to himself.
Wow. How old was Margot? Margot was little then,
Margot
right?
60...
No, she, when...
What?
When...
I don't think... Was Margot
born then?
Maybe, yes.
So she was just little.
Yeah,
Mm.
maybe.
Oh, wow.
AJ wasn't born.
Wow. Did the war have other effects? Like, were you short of things? Was it harder?
Oh, I think...
Pretty lucky over here.
It really did affect us.
Yeah, very lucky here.
He had every... I mean, except for giving, it was doing charity and helping and doing.
Mm.
It didn't affect it. Our friends, yes.
Mm.
But I can't remember it ever hurting us in any way.
Oh, well, that's pretty nice.
You know, just hearing the stories of somebody losing their son or that was sad.
Yeah.
Because we were not only in a Jewish community, in a city community. Being in the position we were in, we knew everybody.
That's right. Yeah, you would
You
have.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, just going to the voting booth today, I must have bumped into 5 people I haven't seen in 90 years. Yeah. Gordon Robertson, you know, member of Parliament, all these people. I'm not supposed to be talking, but cut that out.
It's okay. If we go back, I guess, well, let's go back to the 50s then, because after the war, what was the community, what was the Jewish community like?
Oh, after the war,
Must have been a little more.
the Jewish community was developing very nicely. Everybody got interested in different things. And there were different organizations, a lot of which had them for war veterans, and all these sort of satellite.
Of course, then there was Israel. I mean, Israel was formed in '48, so then we had Israel.
Well, everybody was Israel. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, then people started coming over, you know, to raise money.
That's right.
Weizmann and Jabotinsky and this different, very important people came to Canada to speak to the government, and they were all around in Ottawa. So we met them all.
Oh,
And
that's very lucky.
the Weizmann stayed at the Freiman house, and Vera Weizmann, Hal Weizmann's wife, was very demanding.
Oh.
She'd lay on her chaise longue with her fingernails and smoked a cigarette. I'd love to be waited on.
Oh, really?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very
That's
nice,
fascinating.
very attractive. But
Yeah.
very. And, oh yeah.
It must have been a nice time.
Organizing.
Because that was, and then Beth Shalom was formed.
What?
Beth Shalom was formed in 56?
Beth Shalom wasn't before that.
No, before it was King Street Shul, remember?
The
And then we
Rideau.
moved to, yeah, King Edward Street in
Well, I
Rideau.
don't think I remember the other shuls.
Yeah. No, you remember King Edward. And then from there we went to Chapel Street.
What was the name of that shul?
On Rideau?
Beth Shalom I've known all my life.
Well,
But
yeah.
what other shul? The one on Rideau Street.
Yeah, the one on Rideau Street,
I
and
don't remember that much.
yeah, I was never in it.
I
But,
don't think I was there.
yeah, but they combined to form Beth Shalom.
Oh yeah, I remember Beth Shalom.
Yeah.
That was the heart of everything. Beth Shalom.
Yes, it was. Well, I remember in the 50s.
It still is, actually.
I remember in the 50s how huge the congregation was.
Oh, it's so sad now
Yeah.
to see it. Well, because
Yeah.
people moved.
Yeah.
It was too bad.
Yeah.
The city moved. That was the heart of the city. King Edward Avenue, in around the synagogue, everything was centered around the heart of the city.
Yeah.
And then everybody started moving out to the Jonathan district, and people didn't want to go to a congregation so far out. That seemed like miles out. Like I don't like to go way out to the
That's right. That's,
you know,
yeah,
by the time you get out there, it's an hour.
that's right. It's very far. It's very far.
I'm glad they're keeping the festival on right where it is.
Yeah.
And they seem to be doing all right, I don't know.
So far? Yeah, so far.
Ruth's very involved in that.
Yes, I know that now.
She tried to.
Yeah.
What else?
That's okay. I have another question. I have a question about the store. And because certainly for me, our lives seem to revolve around the store.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the store got sold. And I guess I was sort of curious about it's sort of like a watershed when the store got sold. What kind of effect was that for you?
Well, you know, it's still part of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I go there every week, still the same people. The other day I asked how many of the old timers were left, and they said about 6 out of 1,000.
Is that all?
That's all.
Wow.
I go, and I love the old ones. They all come up, all the old employees wait for me on Thursdays usually when I come in. But it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's still part of me.
Well, the store was wonderful. I remember going in there and it was family.
Yeah.
It was family.
family. Oh, it still is. With the old
With
timers.
the old timers, yeah.
Like I went up to the restaurant the other day. I'd never been on them before. But they have a good restaurant.
Oh, right.
The boys. And somebody came up to me and hugged me. Mrs. Freeman, how are you? Of course, I couldn't remember, but she was there when they had the restaurant. How many years ago was that? I have no idea.
A long time.
But that's it, you see.
A long time.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still a base for me.
Yeah,
I never go anywhere else.
I know. Yeah, that's,
Well, I've always been a person. I never changed much. I'm not a person that, if I find something better tomorrow, then I'll run over. Never. I stick to what I know and where I am,
right.
and keep loyal to my people who are good to me. But I never stray.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been in 5 other stores in Ottawa, even though it isn't Freeman's, it isn't Sommet. There's still somebody who gives me beautiful, who knows me.
That's right.
You know, it's kind of...
It's still home.
And I have friends
Yeah.
who everybody at UC find another place to have their tailoring done, their sewing done. I don't know if it's city or small town, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, there's always a chapter of Fantastic.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what knit the Jewish community, I felt, together.
Right. And that's how you got to go to Palestine.
What?
And that's how you got to go to
That's
Palestine.
how I got to go. A friend of mine in Toronto was going. She was head of Hadassah in Toronto, and she was taking a group over for the first trip to Israel, or Palestine.
Yeah.
And she phoned my father and said she'd like me to go, or wanted one of us. And he said, okay, and then her daughter was one of my best friends. So she was supposed to go. The last minute she didn't go. I was so bad.
Oh, my.
And she was going to Wellesley or something, and she couldn't get away. And it was in January. So I went.
And Lawrence Freiman went. And the rest is history, as they say.
No, wasn't that before Lawrence?
No, wasn't that the trip where you met Lawrence?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Queenie was there too, eh? Yeah. But Zionism was really important.
What?
Zionism was really important.
Was the organization, everybody was working for Israel.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Because you heard such terrible stories of what was happening in Europe and so on.
Yeah. Well, here in Ottawa, my sense is that most Jews were Zionists, and most Jews were involved in Jewish life. It was.
I think that was the beginning of. I mean, I can't think of anything else that people would go to if there was a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
My father would go to the Talmud Torah for local stuff, but not for Zionist stuff, Israeli stuff. I don't know
Okay. Is there anything you want to add to this tape?
What?
Is there anything you want to add to the tape? Any other stories?
Only if somebody asks me questions.
Okay. Thank you.